Because last week we talked about controlling our emotions to our advantage, right? And you weren't here, but remember how we talked about how to control our emotions, keeping things in perspective, and that it's really all about how we respond to our emotions, because emotions are something that's normal, right? Okay, so who can tell me, and Jessica, if you have an idea, just bring it out. Who can tell me what are emotions? What are emotions? You remember from last week, what are emotions? Feelings, okay. And they're also strong physical responses, right? Strong physical responses to things that trigger them, right? And what's a trigger? Just something that causes a reaction, right? Right. But in the terms of emotions, we're talking about triggers in terms of it could be a person, a situation, an experience, something like that. Okay. So also, who can tell me what are some common emotions that we feel? What are some common emotions that we feel? Sad. Glad, anxious, frustrated, nervous. Right. These are all common emotions that we experience. And of course, like we talked about last week, they're normal, right? You're going to experience one or the other at some point in your life or some point in your day, right? Regardless of whether it may be. So how can we apply self-control to those emotions? Think it through. Stopping. You remember the STOP acronym, right? The STOP. Think about how you're feeling. What thoughts are making you feel this way, right? Think about and evaluate. Okay, then ask yourself, self, is this going to harm myself, right? Because I'm not sure if you were here the second week, but we talked about how thoughts are so powerful. Thoughts are really powerful. No wonder why when we think sad thoughts, we get sad, right? Because those thoughts lead to those feelings lead to behaviors, remember? And those behaviors lead to either rewards or consequences. It could be harm to yourself, harm to someone else, right? Or it could benefit you or benefit someone else, right? Okay. So we talked about the broader spectrum of emotions last time, right? But now we're going to focus on one specific emotion because that's one of the main things that need to be controlled, and that's controlling your anger. Okay? All right. So, what's the common symptoms of anger? What's the common symptoms? Because last week we talked about how there's some physical changes that occur. What are some of those physical changes that you may experience?
That face.
That face? The anger face?
I think your heart beats faster.
Your heart beats faster. What else? Someone mentioned last week you could start sweating. Right?
Breathing heavier.
Breathing heavier. You get a flushed face, right? Depending on how light you are. Okay, but it's important to know that anger is a normal emotion. There's nothing wrong with getting angry. Nothing whatsoever, right? However, and people, I mean, they experience anger for a variety of reasons, because really what you get angry about depends on your character and your personality, right? Because what may make someone else angry may not make you angry. It may make you laugh, right? But anger can become dangerous, just like how we talked last week, how anger can become dangerous when what? When it turns into what? Behavior, yes, but I'm looking for a specific word.
Rage.
Rage. When it turns into rage, when anger turns into rage, that's when it becomes dangerous. Okay? Because rage is where you're at that point where you're ready to slap someone, right? Right? Okay, and also anger can also, it's important to remember that anger can also affect the way you deal with others. It can affect your interactions with other people, right? And it can also affect the way that you feel about yourself. So keep that in mind, okay? It affects your interactions. And what are we trying to do from these classes? We're trying to apply self-control. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Next chapter we're going to talk about positive communication, okay? But, okay, moving on. Now, there's some facts about anger, right? The first one is no one ever makes you angry. You make a choice to become angry. Okay? So everyone heard that saying, you made me mad. You made me do this. Why'd you do that? Right? No, you made a conscious choice to become angry. You made a choice to respond in a way that was angry. Okay? All right. And just like last week, we talked about anger is a secondary emotion, right? It's normally felt as a result of some other primary emotion. So what are some of the, do you remember some of the primary emotions we talked about last week?
Frustration.
Frustration. Maybe embarrassment.
Fear.
Fear. Right?
Disappointment.
Disappointment. Right? So that's what we mean by anger is a secondary emotion because it is a result. Yes?
Is there any happy primary? Sorry, I was thinking.
Is there any happy
Primary emotions?
Mm-hmm.
That is our fear.
Oh, I mean, like, we're talking in terms of what can lead to anger. Are you saying, like...
Well, because you said primary ones, secondary ones come from primary ones, and then the examples that were all negative. I was wondering if there was positive primaries.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excitement.
Like excitement?
Joyous.
Joyous? Alright, okay. So anger, keep that in mind. Anger is a secondary emotion. And just like we just mentioned, anger that is uncontrolled can turn to rage. Now, like we said, we'll go back to the first one that we talked on the last slide, is that anger is normal. However, the way you choose to respond, right? The way you choose to respond may be anything but normal and healthy for yourself. Okay? What did we talk about last week? We talked about how anger can cause a lowered immune system, right? When we hold on to that anger, right? It can cause, later on down the line, problems with our organs, problems with our mental health, right? Okay? All right. And also to remember that rage can also be dangerous because that's when you decide to turn that anger into something physical. And also to remember that rage doesn't necessarily have to manifest itself in something physical. You're not necessarily going to hit someone, but are you going to verbally lash out at someone? Right? Are you going to hurt their feelings? Right? Okay. So keep that in mind. Anger that is uncontrolled turns into rage. Okay? We create our own anger by the way we think, our attitudes, and our choices. And we're going to get into it a little bit later. Remember last semester we talked about hot thoughts versus cool thoughts, right? And we make a choice to fuel that anger with our hot thoughts. You make a choice, right? Last week we were talking about we make a choice what thoughts to take in, what positive thoughts to take in, right? Or even what negative thoughts we take in. And we also make a choice what negative thoughts to throw out, or we're going to keep those in, right? That's a conscious choice, even though anger may seem like something that's instantaneous. Okay. Anger hurts. Anger that is uncontrolled has the potential to harm someone, and sometimes it may not be able to be repaired. sometimes it doesn't matter how many times you say, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, can you forgive me, I'm sorry, especially if that person is not practicing self-control and displaying that positive character trait of forgiving, right? It doesn't matter. That choice that you made to let your anger get out of control, or how you chose to respond to that anger, may have ruined that friendship, that relationship that you may have with your friends or your family, right? Sometimes it cannot be repaired. And just like how we spoke with a couple classes ago, we talked about how some choices you only get to make once, right? So we don't have, 8 tries to do it over and over and over again or get it right. Now that's not saying that we don't make mistakes, right? But part of making a mistake is also, having that humble attitude and be willing to apologize when that occurs, when you do make that mistake. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so anger that is uncontrolled has the potential of causing harm that cannot be repaired. Okay? And to illustrate that, there was a story, and maybe some of you have heard of this story, but I think I've heard of it before. There was a story where a boy, he had an anger management problem. And to teach that boy how to get in control of his anger, his dad told him to nail, every time he explodes, nail one nail in the fence, right? And as days went on and on and on, and he was nailing in the fence, eventually he realized, okay, it's, this is getting pretty redundant, So it's easier to control my anger than it is to nail the nails in the fence. Well, then his dad told him, okay, every time you have an opportunity where you could explode and you don't, take a nail out, right? So he got to the point where he's taking nails out, able to control his anger. But one lesson his father wanted him to learn was that when you look at that fence, it'll never be the same again because it has all those holes in it, right? Those are the scars you leave with the things you say, the things that you do, right? That may never be repaired, okay? Okay, so that brings me to the question of the day, like we have every week. Question of the day. Why do we get angry? Why do we get angry?
When you feel invalidated.
Invalidated? When you feel invalidated? What else? Why do we get angry?
When things don't go the way you have planned.
When things don't go the way you have planned, right? That's so true. We get angry because we experience something that is unpleasant or bad, or are, like you said, things don't go the way that we had planned it to be. Okay? But like I said before, people get angry for a number of reasons. And remember, that depends all upon your personality and your character. Okay? And the reasons that we get angry, they're all called triggers. Okay? That's what we talked about in the beginning. What's a trigger? The reasons we get angry. And once again, it could be a person, it could be a situation, it could be an experience, right? As anything that falls into the category of unpleasant or not going the way that we want it to. Right? But I think it's fair to say that although there's a variety of reasons why some of us may get angry, right? There's a few that we can probably say are typical within people. I think it's fair. And we're going to talk about those right now. Okay. Feeling a little insecure. Okay? Now, a major thing that a lot of people get mad about is possibly taking things personally. You take the random comments of others personally, right? Sometimes this comes from our own insecurities. And what are insecurities? Just areas that we lack